Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular August Board of Trustees meeting. I call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the roll call, please. Elizabeth, are you there? All right, I'll call the roll. Trustee Turner?
Here.
Trustee Brooke?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lindsay?
Here.
Trustee Scherer?
Present via Zoom.
And the mayor is here. I'd like everyone to stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. We would start with mayor's comments, but the Tuxedo Volunteer Ambulance Corps has requested some time to address the community. And I've agreed to give them the platform before we have mayor's comments and public comments, because they have a scheduling issue. They have to be available to respond to any emergencies. So I'll turn the floor over to Todd Yanuzzi. Stand closer to the desk, and if you want to be on camera, you can turn around and face the audience.
And also, I'm sorry, Mayor, can I just ask Mr. Yanuzzi to sign in, please? The paper is there on your table.
Take their names.
We'll get them.
Oh,
We'll get
okay.
them down. Yeah, Ed Mattis, Todd Yanuzzi,
Sean Allen in the back here.
Sean, and
And
Miss Yanuzzi. Okay.
Webby's in the junior corps,
Yeah.
which is one of the services. And thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, trustees. Thank you, John and everybody, and thank you to the community. Just we'll do this as quickly as we can, but also try to be informative. Right? And I'm sure a lot of you drive by the firehouse, and then you drive by we're just the little building just past it, right? But we are a organization that's been a part of the community since 1956. It's a volunteer ambulance corps. That doesn't mean we don't have support. We do have support. We have some support directly from the town. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a bit. We also have the support of our community, and that is a main driver of how we service the community and operate our expenses. We are not a tax base specifically, so we are volunteers primarily, and we also buy our equipment. We have two ambulances. One of them is 953, the other is 954. Started out with a Cadillac, like the one in Ghostbusters way back when. We've upgraded them periodically since then. And usually there's a 10 or so year cycle we try to extend as best we can by taking very good care. They don't get a lot of miles in our jurisdiction, but they get hard usage, meaning when there's a call, and these guys are on call right now. They are here with the 954 ambulance, which is the red one. And then, they would respond directly from this site. But when there's a call, you're hitting the gas to get where you got to go as quick as you can, as quick as you can, as slow as you can, is what they say. Make you think. But anyhow, the issue today, and I'm a treasurer now of the organization. I'm an EMT recently, having taken that up, gone to school for that, so I could add on that level. And I was a driver for about a decade as well. I'm doing night shifts while I had a full-time job, but working with Ed. Ed's been doing this for 4 decades. Okay, so a lot of people, they're of the community, but they're serving the community like so many people do in so many different ways. But financially, I'm the treasurer now, and I had a career in finance, and our finances are always strained to a degree. Expenses don't ever go down. Expenses are things like maintenance, heat, right? We splurge on heat and electricity, and we do have internet at the base, but we also have to buy our vehicles, and we plan to do that periodically, and we look for support. However, right now, even though we have a new ambulance on order and being built currently, that was community supported and in this fashion, but one of the engines on the engine on 953 had a catastrophic failure and is needed total replacement. And that cost at the government rate, at the place that services vehicles for many, many years for the community, for the government vehicles, that is going to be in excess of $20,000. Right? And financially, we don't have reserves. We can't run a sale on ambulance calls, which is a revenue, we get reimbursements from insurance. But we need to have that money to get that rig in service. We keep two because usually there's one that's on call and the other is the on-call is the duty rig, the other is the backup. But if you're getting an oil change, or if you have a call where you have to transport two people. So paramedics, you might see the Suburban white vans. They're on the scene for advanced life support and they're contracted, they're supported by town, direct town tax base allocations, support that cost. But you can't be transported in a paramedic Suburban. That's just, that's not possible. You need the ambulance, right? And the ambulance needs an engine, right? And we need two sometimes. There was a case we rolled over a vehicle that we put was close to water edge. And they called me, I wasn't on call, to bring the second ambulance to the case in case the first responders, most of which were firemen, but then, that's drawn in there too. If that vehicle, which was on its roof, shifted, the other vehicle was to, hey, go save the savers, in that case. And thankfully wasn't needed, but it needed to be on scene. Or we do a standby for fireworks or for a public, a school graduation, we need the second ambulance. And, we're here to ask if the village, and we haven't been here before, you haven't seen us, ask this in decades. But, I want that rig back in service as soon as possible. It'll take a couple of weeks, but not until we fiduciarily can know that we have the funds coming in. So we're reaching out to the community individually. People can give whatever they think they can give. We also have a generous donation from Reggie Bar of their venue Friday night. And they're gonna get $1 for every drink they sell. So if you do come, have a few drinks. But we're gonna ask people to raise money for this cause. It goes directly to that cause or to the ambulance corps. That no middleman involved. And this way we can get that engine built. We can do our regular shifting. Anything
Well, I could just basically say at this point, we did do our due diligence. We talked to not only the ambulance company that built the red truck, which is the one that's building the truck we're gonna receive in a few months. The sad part about this was we have about 8 months still to get that ambulance fully built. As many of you know, during COVID, people were not building chassis and people were not building many ambulances. So we looked at a number of different options, one of which was to see whether we could rent an ambulance. And a lot of times when you deal with large companies like Hendrickson, which is building our rig, they have 1 or 2 spares because people are coming in for repairs or remounts or whatever, and they can lump them out. There isn't any to be found. This is true throughout the corps in Orange County and many other spots today. And because Ford was slow to retool and get their situation up to date, there were a lot of orders that were basically ahead of ours. So that's the reason for the delay in the build. But the engine was one of these things where the particular model we have had some history to problems with that diesel engine. And we went and talked to the people at the place where we have it serviced, and they went through it and they said, look, guys, there are some basic things we can do, but our experience with these, and they do all the servicing, I shouldn't say all the servicing, a large part of the servicing for the New York City Fire Department EMS. So they're familiar with a lot of these engines. And they said, our experience is the deeper we go into the engine, the more problems we usually find. So instead of wasting your money in terms of trying to replace the head gasket and starting with the next thing else, et cetera, they said, based on our experience, we recommend you try to see if you can raise the money to put in a new remanufactured engine. So this would be a remanufactured engine. It would arrive in a crate. And it also is something that would have a 2-year warranty, which would be transferable. So at the time we get the other ambulance, we would have an option to sell it. I can't sell an ambulance that doesn't even work the engine. So it's another consideration. So that due diligence was done, and we decided that we would go ahead and try to raise what funds we could from the community. And Todd had some conversations, I believe, with the mayor, and the mayor offered us the opportunity, which we're very grateful for. Thank you. To come here and to talk a little bit about our situation.
And we'd love to answer any questions
Absolutely.
anyone may have. Deputy Mayor, you may have a question about?
I think you addressed it with the people were asking me, about the relationship between the ambulance corps and the paramedics that are supported by the taxpayers.
So the paramedics are rolling, paramedics, and they cover more than this one area, but they also use the Tuxedo Ambulance House as a base, which we like. Okay, but they're not volunteers. They're paid, and they're higher level critical care. They can administer more than 10 times the drugs, probably 50, that are needed, and advanced cardiac support and that sort of thing. And so patients are either ALS, advanced life support, or BLS, basic life support. If it's not threatening your life, but you still gotta go, then it's basic life support, and we release the paramedic if they're on scene. They're usually there first, where they're second to help and to transport.
To just make one other thing clear, several years ago, we decided, for a bunch of different reasons, to no longer serve the New York State Thruway. So this paramedic is dedicated solely to the town of Tuxedo. The only mutual aid arrangement we have is with Sloatsburg, in case they have since Rockland Paramedic covers Sloatsburg, they will swap out a crew, et cetera, when they need to, so we can have our guy go down there. But we're no longer doing the runs over Greenwood Lake to Warwick and places of that sort. So if somebody's coming through town, they need a paramedic, they can stop at our building, get aboard, and we'll do the right thing by that. But what I'm trying to say is this is dedicated to the small town of Tuxedo.
But that's a great point that I missed in my presentation, but I didn't mean to, and that is the fact that, so you call 911, we get dispatched, we're right there. We are however many minutes, so if I'm on call Thursday night, I don't have to be in the ambulance corps building, I can be home, but I can't be 10 minutes away at the movies, at dinner, whatever, somewhere else. You gotta be able to be in there, and get in there so we can service the community. If an ambulance is out, helping somebody, or then it goes mutual aid. So that goes a town over, or wherever, somewhere in proximity, and they may have an ambulance, they may not. But go drive to the next town, for groceries, how long does that take you? So, hopefully a paramedic's there, but that's what we want to avoid. So if we didn't exist, it would be all, it would be either a paid service that was full-time at all level that was supported by taxes, or it would go, or it wouldn't exist. It's not considered essential service. Police and fire are essential service. Ambulance is similar, but not essential. Big difference in the code. And since COVID, in particular, many ambulance corps have gone out of business. They haven't been able, because call volume has decreased. Ours did too, right? And it's come back, but it hasn't come back to what it was. So a revenue source of the insurance reimbursements is lower than it's been. And guess what, like everyone else, our expenses are not lower with those luxuries of heat and insurance and fuel and the like. So it's been a strain for a while, which is why we don't have a built-up reserve that we feel comfortable. And there's also a seasonal element to our revenues. So you really deserve to have a full picture in that seasonal. We get fewer calls in the winter than in the summer. One main reason is people are inside. Another main reason is motorcycles are not on the road. Okay, so think about that one. But the other thing is that towards the end of the year, or the beginning of the year, insurance reimbursements, which is a revenue source when we have calls, slow down because people haven't paid their insurance deductibles. So we don't get the money that isn't paid, right? So again, seasonal, and we're already lower than we want to be. And then another chunk into a seasonal weakness. It's not fiduciarily comfortable as uncomfortable as it is asking. That's what we have to do.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it. We will, we appreciate the presentation, and we hope to see you at Reggie Bar on Friday.
Okay, yeah, Friday night, 6 o'clock on, okay? She'll be there for an hour or two. I'll be there later. I hope to see and Farmers Market Saturday. Question?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, certainly, Gardner.
Todd, have you considered a loan?
We have. There are some very high interest rate loans that are potentially available that we cannot afford to pay back as comfortably, close to 10%, right? That was part of what we had looked at. Or even the renting of the ambulance, if we did that and then the extension went on, we're paying the money, not upfront, right? But we're paying the money and we're still gonna bleed down in that case. So Could we operate with one? We could, but then if something happens to that, then we got none, you know, and even general maintenance stuff, you're up in Iraq and there's a call, then it's no mutual aid. Good question, thank you.
Can I just ask about how much of the, budget, how much of the expected cost?
We don't have any of what we need, quite honestly, because we are below where we would want to be comfortably right now. And we're hoping for revenues and donations to come in. We send out an annual letter annually, right? But that is part of our, you know, we don't know what we'll get exactly. That's part of our budget shortfall coverage, right? That letter goes out a certain time. It hasn't gone out yet. But if we use that for that, then we're gonna be asking you for operating expenses, you know, the money is just not there. We have about 40% less money in the reserve than about 4 or 5 months ago when I was taking on this position and didn't realize that curve ahead of me.
I would just add too, that this is a temporary situation. I mean, we expect the insurance the calls to continue to grow, et cetera. And we will manage our funds appropriately going forward. It's just right now we're in a position where it's very tight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Sure.
Thank you for scheduling.
You bet.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll resume the regular agenda with the mayor's comments. I have a couple of points I would like to make. If you look out the window or you pulled into the parking lot, you might notice that pond number 3 is down a great deal. We had to lower it 4 feet for an engineering inspection of the dam. And the reason we had to have an inspection of the dam is after the earthquake of April 8th, the dam developed some leaks. And while the engineers were able to evaluate the leaks on the Weewa side of the dam, because that's open to the air, the lake had to be reduced 4 feet so that they could review the water side. The good news is it appears there's nothing hugely wrong with the dam. Some mortar work has to be done. We're expecting a report by the end of the week, and I'd have more details for the public with respect to the true condition of the dam and what type of repair work has to be done to ensure that it continues to function as expected. I don't know how many of you got my mayor's message, which was sent out yesterday, but I want to announce to the community, as I've mentioned in past messages, that Verizon Wireless has been in the village working on finding a site for a cell tower that may be approximately 105 to 110 feet. It's called a monopole. And the site that they found, which they recommend, and it's only a recommendation because obviously any installation of a cell phone tower would be subject to public discussion, is up on Ridge Road near the water towers. Now, recently, maybe several weeks ago, they did a balloon test to determine how this monopole, which is shaped like a pine tree, would appear to viewers from the west side of the lake, from the north side of the lake, essentially how it would look and whether it would be a visual nuisance, so to speak. And they prepared a report and sent us the report. My intention is to provide to every member of the community that wants it all the reports with respect to the installation of this cell tower. That would include the balloon test report, the radio frequency report. We are continuing to gather information regarding the issue of health effects of a cell tower generally. And once we have all these reports, I would hope that by the week of September 3rd, we would be able to provide those reports to email to every resident in the village. And the reason for that is because we want to have a public discussion where everybody has the opportunity to engage on the issue of whether we want to construct a cell tower to improve cell service in the village, which I don't think there's anybody in this room who would, or listening on Zoom, who would say that we have great cell service. It's a promise I made in my campaign, and we're working towards a solution. So My point being, if there is anyone who does not receive my mayor's message, either in the room or on Zoom, please give Denise a call and give her your email address if you want to receive the wireless package the week of September 3rd. Review it, and we will begin the discussion of publicly determining whether a cell tower is appropriate, where it might be, at the board meeting in September. One of the things that happened months ago was a tree came down on the roof of the village hall and caused substantial damage. Fortunately, it was covered by insurance, but in doing the repair work, we asked the tenants who were in the corner, the southeast corner of the garage, to remove their property to a different space. And we discovered that we had this huge unused space. And I don't know how much time anybody spends in Village Hall. I certainly am here every day. John's here every day, and so is Elizabeth. But it would be a wonderful thing if we could expand Village Hall. I know that in the past, there was even some talk about selling this building and constructing Village Hall somewhere else. But I think economically, an expansion of Village Hall into the space as you're facing the office to the left would be economically feasible and would provide us with certain things we don't have. A conference room. Anytime I meet with anybody, to meet them in here if someone's using the office, because the court clerk uses what is called the mayor's office. So, and to move that forward, we actually have retained the services pro bono at this point of an architectural firm that is going to put forth some plans on how to improve this unimproved space, essentially a build out. And we're looking for those. We're going to have a meeting next week with the architect to let the architect know what type of office space we'd like to build out. And then we'd look forward to getting some plans, and we'd move forward on actually constructing and building out that section of this particular building. Finally, we have a bar vacancy that needs to be filled. It's a 2-year term. And as I'm standing here now and speaking to everyone, I would invite anyone who's interested in applying for that particular vacancy to submit their resume to the Village Hall or to me directly. We had a number of candidates who applied for a 5-year term that I'm going to fill tonight, but we have this second vacancy. We will consider the prior candidates who were not selected, but we love any member of the community to come forward if they have design experience, architectural experience, or some sort of related professional experience, and they wanted to devote some time to the bar and to the community. So I invite anybody who's interested to send a resume or a CV to me or to Elizabeth. In addition, based on some things I've heard, we may have vacancies in other boards. So once those become available, we will publish the information. I'll again invite people to apply who wish to join either the planning board or the BZA, depending upon where the vacancies are, and we'll move forward from that particular point. So that completes my remarks for today, and we'll reverse the order of the agenda, and I'd start with the deputy mayor, if you'd like to give some remarks at this point.
I'd just like to talk about what Josh and I started talking about is bonding, issuing a bond and applying for Environmental Facilities Corp financing. EFC is a New York State agency. And so I spoke with our capital markets advisor today from Munistat and went over what our next step should be. First, we'll provide a full list of estimated costs for projects, for capital projects, and then we'll work with our bond counsel at Harris Beach to prepare a bond resolution. And Brian, if you're on, is Jeff Storch still our bond counsel from Harris Beach?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, good. So I know who to call. So this will take a couple more months, but we're getting started with that. And also by the end of this year, we need to spend the balance of our ARPA funds, the American Rescue federal funding. It's in the amount of $60,000 balance. So we will be using that money as well for projects.
Thank you. Trustee Brooke, any comments at this point? Trustee Turner, no comments. Trustee Scherer, any comments? Just open the meeting.
Yep, real briefly, I've been talking with Sally Soni, who I believe's on tonight, about doing a better job of advertising I'd say one of our hidden gems in Tuxedo, which is our trail network, which Sally has done a tremendous job over the years of maintaining. I actually only learned about the trails during the pandemic, which was somewhat surprising to me, given that we moved to Tuxedo in 2009, so it took about 10 years for me to discover all of the various trails that we have and that the trail committee maintains. I spoke with Sally a couple of weeks ago, and I've been traveling internationally, so I haven't been as quick as I would have liked to have been. But we're going to organize an event, location to be determined, to just get the word out, particularly with, we have a number of younger families that have moved into our community, thankfully. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people that are just completely unaware of this tremendous asset and benefit that we have. So I just wanted to post that. I know Sally has asked Mayor that you put out some communication around the trails as well. I don't know if that has happened or hasn't happened.
It has, Trustee Scherer.
Great.
It's published.
Fantastic. I missed it, so I apologize for that. So I think just the last thing I would say is, and Sally's got her hand up, so I'm sure she'll have something to say, but there are trail maps that are available. She can talk about where those are. And the other thing that I think is worth noting is that, trees do come down, or the trails do need maintaining. Sally would love it if people were to reach out to her directly to, let her know where work needs to be done, so that she can direct the appropriate resources. With that, maybe we can I don't know if we can let Sally jump in.
Sure, we're finished with trustee comments, so we'll open the room to public comments. And as a courtesy to Ms. Sani, as she's following up on the same subject, John, would you unmute her and allow her to address the meeting?
Hello,
Good evening.
can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Oh,
loud and clear.
okay. Yes, well, thank you, Josh. I had sent something to the mayor, and I was really hoping this would be included in your mayor's letter. This is fine tonight, people who are listening, there are 10 on the Zoom, and let's see, and there are a few at the meeting, but that's not enough to really tell the community what we have here. So I'm very disappointed, Mayor, that you did not put this in your newsletter. Did you say you did send something out earlier?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know.
On August 9th, Denise Spaltoff, our deputy clerk, sent a trail committee update, word for word what you sent to me.
Really? Well, that's funny because I didn't get it. I don't, well, I'm glad of that. I did not receive it.
Do you get my mayor's message?
I do. And I get everything else from Denise.
I cannot explain why that was not received by you, because it was sent.
Mayor, it may be worth resending, because I did just look up, because I don't remember seeing it, and I just looked up all of the communications I've received from Denise, and I just got her message with your or email with your mayor's August message. Prior to that, I had the fundraiser for the tuxedo ambulance, volunteer
Yeah,
ambulance.
those-
But I have all of those. I have and then one prior to that was the Weewah Beach being closed. I do not have anything around the trail, so I'm wondering if maybe for whatever reason it didn't make it out.
Well, I will resend it, but I have it on my phone at August 9th at 12:45 PM from Denise Spaltoff to Denise Spaltoff, which is generally the way she circulates everything, including my emails. But I'll see that my message, I'll see that it gets out again.
Yes, well, I'm wondering if the people who are in the audience here all received it. I did not, and So
Let's
maybe
take
it
a
just-
vote. How many people received Ms. Sani's Trail Committee update on August 9th? Mr. Santiani, Sheila Trailens, Mr. Reichgott, we will send it again. I cannot.
Okay, thank you. Maybe it was just some people were left off the group or something. I don't.
We'll just send it again.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it because,
Denise will be back on Friday. She's in Carolina until then, and we will send it
well,
out.
yeah, it isn't time important. It's time because only the fall is the best time to go on the trails. And I'm really hoping that everybody will enjoy it. And we do have to do a little more work, and we'll get at that. It's not easy to find workers, but
Thank you, Ms. Sani. Do we have
thank you.
any members of the public who wish to speak here in the room? Anybody have any comments they'd like to make to the board? Okay, anybody on Zoom, aside from Ms. Sani, who wishes to make public comment on any subject you wish to speak on? All right, thank you. There will be a second opportunity to speak at the second public comment session at the end of the meeting when you have a chance to talk about what took place today or anything that's on your mind. So we'll move on from that particular point. We now have reports to the board. The first report is the court report, which is always attached to the record. The second is our police chief, Alan Faust. Chief Faust, would you take the floor, please? And you can turn and face the camera for the benefit of the audience. Thank you.
Good evening. For the month of July, the police department responded to 202 calls. We had 2 criminal cases, 1 arrest, 2 motor vehicle accidents. Both were just property damage, not personal injury. They gave out 10 tickets, 17 warnings, 5 alarms, 2 intrusion alarms, 2 medical calls, assisted town police a couple times. 2,866 miles were patrolled for the month, and the approximate vehicles daily were about 830 vehicles per day. I'm getting a lot of bear calls too, so as everybody sees, so please keep your garbage cans inside because we're getting a lot of calls from bears running around, so keep them inside or locked up. And it's been a good month for the police department. The guys are out there really trying to, with the vehicle and traffic to, with the problems and concerns that people have had. So, I think things are going pretty well for the month. But as always, any questions, give me a call.
Any questions? Yes, any questions for the chief?
I spoke to you regarding the stop sign at the south end of the state.
Mhm.
Ticket for the chief for in progress with the patrol. You see the guys down occasionally, but we still have people going through that stop sign.
Yeah. They gave a couple tickets out. I don't think they were for the stop sign, for some other violations, like you said.
I'm sorry,
Sit.
would it be possible to
Repeat the question.
hear it at all?
Maybe you want to repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was, is anything being done about people running the stop sign at the end of East Lake, where, towards the South Gate area? And go ahead.
Yeah, as we said, it's kind of a tough spot to sit, because the people see it. We gave out a couple other tickets for people in the area for other violations that they committed, but you know, since you brought that to my attention, seeing they've been, focusing on that spot, much more, than in the past. Yep, thank you.
There's another question from Professor Hayes.
Yes, I noticed that, a police officer had stopped two bicyclists on East Lake Road a couple of days ago. How often do you stop bicyclists, and are they coming in through the south gate, or how are they coming in?
For those,
Why would you stop bicyclists?
for those two, I have no idea about those two bicyclists. You know, bicyclists come in, you know, daily, but, you know, all are,
If
or-
you do stop bicyclists?
or people that should be in here. I mean, I don't know for that, maybe it was somebody, community police, maybe there's a friend of the police department, they're speaking to them, I have no idea. I'm not sure, sir.
Anyone on Zoom have a question for the chief? Okay, thank you, chief.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, Superintendent Jeff Voss of the DPW. Okay,
good.
thanks.
Okay, so, for the last month, been a lot of drainage, work that we've done. We installed a, 10-inch storm drain on Stable Road and also with 3 catch basins. We replaced 180 feet of 18-inch drain pipe on, Tower Hill Road that, had a problem with one of the heavy rains and it buckled the road, and also with a catch basin there. We also replaced a 12-inch drain pipe on Tower Hill Road West. We've done a lot of weed whacking, Tuxedo Road, Turtle Point Road, the racetrack, Clubhouse Road, Tower Hill Loop, Fox Hill Road, Westlake Drive, South Lake Place, and Westlake Road. Cut grass throughout the village, removed fallen trees on Serpentine Road, Weewa Road, Ridge Road, Antio Road, and Westlake Stable Road. Cleared block storm drains on Fox Hill Road, Continental Road, and Pine Hill Road. We did work on the equipment, the asphalt paver, and one of the dump trucks had hydraulic lines had to be replaced. I've made several phone calls to the county regarding paving contracts, and I've not had much luck.
Yeah, I have taken over that assignment. I have a call into the county attorney. Just a brief description. The county has a bidding process for paving asphalt essentially, and the low bidder gets the contract, and it's contract for county, but local municipalities within that county can essentially piggyback on that contract and can request that the county paver provide the asphalt for their local village roads, which is what we did. Only upon getting an estimate as to the cost, we were shocked to see that the county rate of $85 per ton, more or less, was jacked up to $125 per ton for the village of Tuxedo Park. So that is unacceptable to us, especially in light of the fact that the contract that the paver has with the county specifically says that the rate charged to the local municipalities will be the same as the rate charged to the county in absence of certain exigencies that don't exist in this case. So Jeff has been working very hard to try to get someone at the county to deal with this problem. I've now taken over the issue, and I've been promised that Rick Golden, the county attorney, will call me tomorrow, and that we will discuss this issue. As a secondary matter, I also said to Jeff, can you get us a quote from a private company? And he did. The company that provided the asphalt last year, which is a well-known company called Tilcon, and they're even more expensive than the quote that we got from the county paver. So paving hasn't started and will not start until we rectify this situation and get a fair price for the work to be done on Circuit Road, on Weewa Road, as well as the parking lot here that you all just avoided stumbling across after you parked your vehicle. So we're working on it, and I hope to resolve it one way or another rather quickly. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. We also, the DPW crew, along with John and Elizabeth, completed a defensive driving course that was, provided by our, was it Perma?
Yeah, permit.
Permit, yeah.
Our safe, workers' comp.
Workers' comp
Carrier.
carrier, yep. Water and sewer, we did various utility markouts. We repaired a water line, a leaking water line on East Lake Stable Road. Obtained meter readings, requested by Denise. Repaired 2 water meters. Continued the water and sewer operations on weekends. I also did a walkthrough with a few members of the Capital Improvement Committee and the village engineers at the water plant, in regards to some work that has to be done on one of the Clearwell tanks. We worked on some shut-off valves and access hatches at the water plant on the Clearwell tank. And on Monday, I received a call from VRI that there was a problem with one of the water filters. And so one of them is down. There's 2. One of them's down. There's some screens that have broken. And John got a hold of Westech, who is the manufacturer of the tanks filters, and I met a gentleman down at the water plant yesterday, showed him what was going on, and we hope to get a quote shortly here on the parts that we need to make the repairs.
The second tank is essentially a backup for the first tank.
Yeah, we only run one at a time.
So
So
we'll get that replacement part as quickly as we can, and we'll be in good shape. Okay, all right. Any questions from the audience or for the trustees for Superintendent Falk? Yeah, Mr. Brown.
A lot, and I said a lot of erosion on the side of the roads taking place. Like the asphalt, you probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Trade plans to,
as we do.
Let me just repeat the question for the folks on Zoom.
Yeah. It's got with all that rain this year, it's been.
There,
Right.
let me, before you answer, let me just repeat the question. I'm not sure that I could hear it. Mr. Brown asked a question about the roadways and the drop-offs, essentially, caused by erosion and stormwater, and how the DPW addresses that situation, generally village-wide. Go ahead.
And also what I forgot to mention is we've done a lot of patching of the roads, so we'll take care of those as we come across them, as we're patching.
Good, thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Superintendent Voss? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next, which is John Ledworth, our Building and Land Use Officer.
Thank you. Number of projects have been proceeding pretty well on Turtle Mountain Road, Summit Road, East Lake Road. Things have been going fairly well. We've notified a few property owners to cut back some overgrowth near the sides of the road that were interfering with sight lines as people were pulling out onto some of the roads. We have a couple active projects before the BAR that are proceeding fairly well. We have a special meeting next Wednesday because we will not be having a meeting on September 2nd, which is Labor Day, so to try to keep all the projects moving along without delaying anybody. We re-notified a couple landscapers that they need applications to be submitted to be approved before they can work in the village of Tuxedo Park. Continue to have trouble with Verizon. I've notified them multiple times about low-hanging wires, which we're aware of.
Verizon is compared to Verizon Wireless. They're two separate. Verizon, right.
Verizon.
Yeah.
We have at least 3 or 4 different areas in the village where the wires are hanging very, very low. And I've notified them, given them pole numbers, street names, and we're really having very little success in getting them to perform just general maintenance. And that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for John? Any questions from the audience here for John? Any questions from anyone on Zoom for John? All right, thank you. All right, the next item is the treasurer's report. Elizabeth, are those attached to the record?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the deputy mayor and a climate smart update.
Yes, John and I met with our liaison at NYSERDA, the New York State agency that helps with clean energy, community certification, and climate smart community certification. We went through all the actions we've taken to date and the documentation that is required, so we know exactly what we have to do. And we'll be completing the documentation in the next couple weeks before the October 1 deadline in a way, because at October 1 the awards go down. But we feel really confident that we will be awarded $60,000 when we complete our certification, and that money can be used towards clean energy upgrades in our buildings. The other thing is I will be sending out through Denise an explanation of the community solar opportunity that's been discussed. Uh, This is in addition to the community choice aggregation, community solar. Josh and I both have these accounts. It's a guaranteed savings on 100% of your electricity bill. And I just need to explain it again to our residents so that they feel comfortable with it. And it can be done in addition to the community choice aggregation program. So I'll be sending that out. And if anybody has any questions once they receive it, just please email me.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Capital Planning Committee report. Just a brief introduction. Earlier this year, the Board of Trustees decided that we wanted to form a capital planning committee, which is a committee that will be looking at the long-term goals for the village with respect to capital improvements. And we have a committee that consists of Joanne Hanson, former longtime planning board chair, as the chair of this committee, and other esteemed members, including 2 trustees, Deputy Mayor Lindsay and Trustee Scherer. And the committee is now going to make its first presentation, albeit hopefully relatively brief. We have a long agenda with respect to the work they've done to date and what they intend to do in the future. So I'll turn the floor over to Chair Joanne Hanson.
So where's the best place to come forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, back. Sit there.
Yes, you can sit where, yeah, you don't have to stand. If anyone on Zoom can't hear this, Josh, if you can't hear us, please let us know. We'll try to adjust the microphone.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joanne Hanson. As Mark said, I'm the chair of the Capital Planning Committee, which was created by the mayor and the trustees. And we have 3 primary missions. The first one is that we'd like to establish an inventory of the capital infrastructure assets of Tuxedo Park for this administration and for future administrations, so that we lay out our water department, our sewer, our Department of Public Works, our equipment, and take a look at what are all these assets and what kind of condition are they currently in. Gardner Hempel is here this evening, and he is going to do a presentation on that particular proposal to the trustees. And we also, in addition to sort of laying a base case of where are we, what kind of conditions are things in, we're also working with John Ledwith actively and Jeff Voss on looking at what is going on in terms of needed repairs and prospective improvements to the infrastructure, and going through, and as you might expect, that can be a very long list, and prioritizing the various items so that we can make present recommendations to the trustees of these are the things that we think we need to tackle and what order we need to tackle them in. And longer term, relating again to this inventory, what we want to be able to do is, again, advise the trustees and the village about appropriate reserves, both for maintenance of our assets, and ultimately things over time wear down, become obsolescence, and need replacement. So it is looking and trying to systematize the infrastructure improvements that we both need to make because we have things that need fixing, but also to appropriately plan ahead and do necessary forward work so that we have the infrastructure of the village in good shape. And as the mayor mentioned, it's myself, two trustees, Michelle, Josh, who's on Zoom there, Gardner, who's here this evening, and Tom Birmingham. So that's the three focuses of the work that we're doing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gardner, who's making a specific proposal to you all this evening, for that foundational study of where are we. We have spoken to a number of other municipalities to get references. The reason I ducked out, I was speaking to Agora Hills, who's very happy with the company and has found it very valuable. Lake.
California?
That's California, yeah.
Okay.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Gardner. I should pause if there are any questions from the trustees or anybody else.
Tinka Shaw has her hand up.
Okay, back down.
It looks like Tinka has her hand raised.
Yeah, hi, I'm sorry, this is not with the, it has to do with Michelle's community power, whatever. When you send out the email through Denise, can you include a form on how to opt out? Because there are many people who want to opt out of that program.
Yes, certainly I can do that. And if there's still any people who haven't opted out, that's totally fine. What I also was focusing on was community solar, which is completely separate. It's an opt-in program. It's something you choose to subscribe to for guaranteed savings on 100% of your electricity bill. The reason why there are guaranteed savings is that the developers of solar farms, just solar, that's it, no other renewable energy, they are subsidized by New York State, and in exchange for the subsidy, they are required to pass along savings to the subscribers, the residents. So that's what I'd really like to focus on, but I can certainly add opt-out for the community choice aggregation as for that information as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Gardner, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees. Thank you, John, Elizabeth, members of the public, wherever you may be. My name is Gardner Hempel. I live at 14 Butternut Road. And I appreciate the opportunity to address all of you tonight as a member of the Capital Planning Committee. As Joanne said, the committee was formed in April, and one of the primary objectives and baselines we want to establish is an inventory of the capital assets of the park to determine their projected useful lives, as well as estimated major repair and replacement costs to help us make informed recommendations to the Board of Trustees about capital spending priorities. The committee has identified a professional organization which performs reserve studies for residential communities and municipalities. And we are recommending tonight that the board engage the services of this firm. Their name is Association Reserves, and you should all have a copy of their proposal in your packs. Just so you know, if you're not familiar with this, a reserve study is a budget planning tool that identifies anticipated major repair and replacement projects and associated costs that are necessary to sustain our capital assets. This study would establish a baseline inventory of our assets, projected replacement cost, and analysis. This empirical data and insight would inform and support the decisions of the current and future boards of trustees in regard to determining capital expenditure priorities and establishing adequate reserves for longer-term funding needs, as opposed to be in a scenario where we react to repairs This would be to anticipated repairs over time and fund appropriately over time to minimal impact on taxpayers in any particular year. In addition to this asset analysis, this firm would provide an Excel-based tool called UPlanet, clever, to allow us to perform our own alternative what-if scenarios to optimize financial planning and choices and decisions. As Joanne said, we checked with various references. I talked to the city of Santa Clarita, and they were very effusive. I must say that I have personally used them in my other responsibilities on 3 occasions, and they are just outstanding in terms of the work, the deliverable, and their dialogue to explain their analysis as opposed to thud, you figure it out. Very consultative in their approach. So that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Questions from the board before the audience?
Sure. The UPlanet tool, they'll be available to help us get started with that.
Yes, they have walked me through this. It's very user-friendly, but you need to walk through with somebody who can take you around. It's Excel-based. It's very intuitive once you understand how to change the variables, see with the what-if scenario, change the variable, do another what-if scenario, change use of life, change costs, change assumptions, all the things you would intuitively want to know to make an informed decision where you have choices. Yeah.
This sounds like a great tool. Will this cover all the assets, or is there anything out of scope? Like, are the sewers in scope as well too?
Good questions. Here's what would be included and excluded. Included roadways, fencing, 3 bridges, 3 dams, 2 water tanks, equipment and truck fleet, 10 buildings, pump stations, water and sewage treatment facilities. It does not include the pipes. That's
That'd be very, that's a hard one to do.
Yes, but they did say on this point, it's outside their expertise, but they would work with all these and they would work with our consultants that we do have engaged here to get these assets correct and assessed, but also to help us, I think, with a pathway forward on the pipes.
Awesome.
I know it's a big issue, a big number, but I think that covers the pretty much everything we have.
Yeah, yeah.
Professor Hayes has a
Would it
question.
include buildings and heating systems for buildings as well as build vehicles?
Like the HVAC and all that sort of stuff,
Sorry?
like the HVAC system and all that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Generators.
suppose the building needed insulation to make them more efficient, would they weigh in on that as well?
Probably not. They might have an opinion, but that's not really what they don't get that granular.
But replacing the heating units, that would be part of it.
Infrastructure.
Yeah.
That sort of.
How long would it take them to do this?
They would say they could do it in 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
They told me 2 to 3 months. They delivered in 6 weeks. Good consultant.
Have you seen a representative report from any of those municipalities you mentioned?
We did not ask for their reports to see them. We didn't think that was appropriate.
Well, I only asked that question because I think that, that's not necessarily proprietary information. And if we were, for example, to see a representative report from a municipality, even if they redacted the name of the municipality, we might get a sense of what we're getting for our money. And I'm just wondering if they would be willing to provide us with a redacted report so we could see what this looks like. Because quite frankly, until this was brought up to me, I had never heard of such a process. I am unfamiliar with the process, and I'd like to see what the process results in before I agree to commit X dollars for the plan itself. So that's just my personal feeling,
Yeah, I think we obviously, Gardner's got specific examples that relate to work that he's previously done. The reports are, and that's what I was following up with Aurora Hills about. The reports are customized, so it's like, what's the asset base that they were studying? In the case of Aurora Hills, it was their physical, their office buildings, their city headquarters, and their recreational facilities. And as Gardner said, it's an Excel spreadsheet that basically says, here are your assets, and they prioritize them for you. Here's the things that we think you need to deal with first. Here's the underlying assets, and then estimated reserves, and then they were working with, the numbers that were presented. But I think those spreadsheets are pretty, I mean, they're an Excel spreadsheet, but they're pretty customizable.
To answer your question directly, I know them fairly well. I'll ask them if they give us a redacted report. In addition to Excel spreadsheets, they also provide funding graphs with bar charts. So if you fund at this level over time, you will be under, at, or over meeting your funding requirements in anticipation of what you need over the next 15, 20, 25 years.
Any of the trustees have an objection to getting some sort of redacted
No, I
view?
think having a redacted view or non-redacted would be fine. What's the cost gonna be?
12,000.
Sounds fine.
It's good governance.
All right, so,
I guess the question would be, if they refuse to give us a redacted copy, then what? That's your decision, but
yeah.
I'll ask for it though.
We can at least make an effort to ask.
Sure,
for
of course.
Something that we can see other than their very colorful, and interesting brochure, which we all got copies of. And the proposal itself, which was at the end of the brochure, so to speak. So yeah, that would be great.
So I actually did have one last question. So they do this and then do we update it or do we have to go back to them to periodically update it? What's the
Well, they
process?
give us a choice. They recommend doing it every 2 or 3 years. And they, of course, one of their pricing options is to do it once, 12,000, to do it with a renewal after 2 or 3 years. It's, incrementally more, but it's a great value if you commit to doing it and update. So that's a choice. It's in the proposal. Our committee said 1 year right now would be sufficient, because this is really establishing the baseline and the data.
Maybe you can do it again in 5 years or something, yeah.
But
Okay.
it's very
I guess
formative.
I would ask, I don't know where the trustees are, but, we would appreciate, if you are willing to commit to it, subject to seeing those those reports. If you're comfortable with it.
Speaking for myself, your recommendation, because you've had experience with them, carries enormous weight, and I'm ready to say, let's do it. Right? The price is not outrageous. I think it's reasonable to say, give us something so we can do it, but, I say move forward. It's a relevant document that we should have in inventory.
No, I
What we
think
need
it's
to do.
important for not just this group of volunteers, but, to carry forward. And I know people have made efforts in the past to sort of do it on an ad hoc basis, and this is a
Institutionalized.
professional basis.
Yeah,
to
I
do
think
it.
what you want is a vote, not a vote, but this trustee says, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just like to be satisfied with respect to it's an unusual process for me, okay? It's not something I've ever encountered before, and just some representative formats so that I could familiarize myself with it, and then I'd be comfortable supporting it. I don't have any visceral objection to this. So, I think what we can do is we can certainly wait a week or less. I mean, you're gonna reach out to them tomorrow and see whether they're amenable, and just let us know by email.
I'll do it tonight.
Yeah, and that's it. And then we'll move on it as quickly as possible. Okay?
Yeah, But the question he asked is a poll, so.
Sentiment of the board.
Yes, send them in the board.
I'm excited to do this. I think it's good.
No, I am as well. And just as an aside, I spoke with Elizabeth and our accountant about where the funds would be coming, and there are funds left over from some capital project financing. So it's there.
Okay. And Josh, trustee Scherer, I'm sorry. I know you're on the committee, so.
Right, exactly. I'm supportive, as you can imagine.
Can we do it subject to? I mean, how long would we have to?
Well, absolutely, the proposal should be available to the public. What I can do with it is nothing confidential about it in the proposal and in the brochure, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, it's like about 8
You
pages.
asking about the spreadsheet?
No, the proposal, the
Proposal.
proposal, you know, their brochure with the proposal at the end. Yeah, I don't have a problem posting it on the website to let people take a look at it. So, we'll, rather than, pass a resolution tonight, we're all seem to be in agreement. We'll get this done as quickly as
I
possible.
would say posting on the website is somewhat different from making it available for anyone who wants to read it. For competitive reasons, might not want
Neither
their
fees,
proposal
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's a good point.
generally available.
Can I verify that with them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you
So-
gotta
but it's
ask them if it's
acceptable-
available for public consumption, but
It's acceptable to have a copy of it here that anybody who wants to review it can review it.
Okay.
And it doesn't create proprietary.
all right.
Would we
Okay.
have to schedule another meeting to vote on it, or is it one of those,
Over email?
expenses that doesn't need a vote?
Well, it's over $10,000, so technically we really have to vote on it. But I'm sort of loath to vote on it, subject to getting some additional information. I'm perfectly happy in calling a special meeting and voting on it at a special meeting. It seems that we have a unanimous consensus, but the appropriate way, as I see it, is to get the additional information or a response that we're not going to get any additional information before we actually approve it on
Yeah.
resolution. Okay. All right.
Mayor, can I just, I'm
What?
sorry, excuse me, Mayor. Tinka has had her hand raised.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Ms. Shaw?
Oh, hi. So thank you for agreeing to make it public, the proposal.
Well, that's
Um,
subject to any proprietary objections by the company, but
Well,
we'll,
just to-
Right,
to clarify,
Right, I get it.
Available in the office for residents to look at. That's not publishing it on a website that anybody can access. So I think the assumption is that the hard proposal will be available here at a minimum. And the question is whether they care about it being published. I doubt that they would. I think they would probably object to that. But that proposal is public information to the residents of the village.
we'll see.
Right. What
Go ahead, Tina.
I totally get, but if we then, instead of publishing on the website, if they object to it, making it available to the residents, I suggest that you have Denise Baltoff send it to all the residents that have signed up for the email. And that is just for the residents. And it's much, I guess, more open
Yeah, I
than
think if
just
they
having it
object,
available
they
in the
object.
village.
I think we'll see what they have to say, and then the board will deal with how to make it available. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. All right, that concludes the oral and written report. So I make the following motion. Be it resolved that the board add all written reports to the permanent record. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, thank you. Next, we move on to the minutes of the last meeting, July 17th, 2024. Are there any corrections? Well, let me make the motion. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes from July 17th of 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion was made by me, seconded by trustee Brooke. Okay, now we move on to old business. And I'm glad Jeff is still here.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I was asking a question before and I didn't realize I was muted. So with the reports, who made the second? I just didn't hear it.
yeah, it was trustee Brooke.
On for the reports, okay. And it was all
both.
in favor?
Yeah, trustee Brooke, for both. Are you okay? Can you hear me?
And it was all in favor.
Yes, yeah, you both.
I can hear you now, yeah. And
Okay.
I could,
Okay.
Thank-
All right, substantial business, engineering proposal for Westlake Road. I don't know how many of you, first of all, know where the Westlake Road Bridge is, but let me describe it as best as I can. South of Eagle Mountain Road on Westlake Road, there is a sharp left-hand turn going downhill to the lake. That sharp left-hand turn consists of a culvert with a bridge that crosses a stream. If any of you have traveled on Westlake through that left-hand turn, you'd notice to the left side that the DPW has had to continue to recreate a curb because the structure itself, the bridge and the culvert are falling away into the stream, primarily on the east side. So I'm going to turn to Jeff, who's familiar with this issue, to give us a brief explanation of what's happening there and why we have to get an engineering proposal to repair this structure before it collapses. Go ahead.
Well, basically, like,
You can take your seat.
like the mayor said, that the road edge is collapsing. Because there's the, structure underneath of it is just falling apart. It doesn't have a proper footing to support it. It's basically a concrete pipe or two concrete pipes running across the road with no real structure to hold it together. Which is why John had gotten a hold of a engineer that him and I met with over there. And he has given a proposal to the village for engineering services to make a repair to that bridge.
Okay. I don't know if the trustees have had an opportunity to look at the Stokosa proposal. Are you familiar with it? The total amount for the lump sum payment for structural design and other services is $9,800. There's a payment schedule based upon how much work they do, interim period. As anybody like to see it? Because this is work that is absolutely necessary, because we don't want to wake up one day after a heavy rainstorm and find that that bridge has collapsed, okay? Because, so we have to remediate it. Any questions from any of the trustees? Any questions from any of the audience? Okay, I'll make the following motion. Be it resolved to authorize Mayor Citron to sign the engineering proposal submitted by Day Stokosa to repair the Westlake Road retaining wall and bridge. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the deputy mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Trustee Scherer? Aye. Okay, great. Unanimous. All right. Now, next item on
Mayor?
the, yes,
Sorry, Mayor.
yes.
Two things. First of all, Tamika has her hand raised, and also, I hate to be awkward, but there is something published on the website about the, I think about the capital planning report, this thing from Association Reserves, so I'm not sure if that's what you were talking about before or not, but it was already published on the website.
Okay. Who put it, do you know, put it up? Oh, you put it up as part of the,
Yeah,
attachments to the
it's part of the
agenda.
attachments,
Oh, because it's not,
right.
it's not listed as an agenda item. You know, ordinarily we put attachments for agenda items. It was listed as a report, so there is no
Oh,
specific.
so I must be talking about something different then.
Yeah, I would be surprised that you would have posted it because it's not an agenda item or a resolution for approval.
Oh, I attach reports too, though, so anyway, I was confused. I guess if I wasn't supposed to have published it, I apologize.
All right, okay. Well, if it's up there, it's up there, but it wasn't listed as agenda item, so it wouldn't be an attachment. Okay, the next item is the fence law.
Tinka still has her hand up.
Oh, Ms. Shaw? You have a question on this particular subject?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Will the 9,800 proposal be taken out of the ARPA funds?
That's an excellent suggestion, and I would turn to our deputy mayor and budget director. Does that sound like an appropriate suggestion?
We went, Elizabeth and I went through the list of what we could use it for. I do think, we'll double check. That's good question.
Yeah,
Elizabeth,
because we need to use up those funds before December 31st this year. So I'm assuming that they will do this before then? get started on this project?
Absolutely. And also what needs to be done that is definitely on our list is the new heating system for the South Gatehouse. That's definitely on the list to use ARPA funds for.
Okay, great. And then I'm just curious, it's a new engineering firm. Did we get a proposal from Wesson and Sampson also? Or what it would cost to do the plans?
We did not. We thought it might be in the best interest of the village to spread some of our engineering concerns around. And based upon the hourly charge, we thought this was in keeping with what Weston and Sampson has charged us in the past. All the construction work that this firm is doing is $185 an hour, which I think might be slightly lower than what Weston Sampson charges us for some of their analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. All right. The next item is is Chapter 49, the fence law, under old business. We had brought this to the public. We had discussed it in some detail. There was comments from the public, and based upon those comments that were made, the law was in essence redrafted and shortened. What was taken out of the law were a lot of the references to design elements. The chairman of the bar at the time made specific objections to the code taking away bar authority to specify design and material, which is what was in the proposed statute. And that was removed to satisfy that particular objection. And Jay Reichgott, the chairman of the planning board, is here tonight. And I would ask him to give us a brief overview of how the law is contoured now and what it addresses. And then the purpose of having it on the agenda tonight is to schedule a public hearing, which you must do before you vote on passage of any local law. So Jay, you have the floor.
Better. Okay. Good evening, and I'm Jay Reichgott. And if you don't mind, I'm going to sit.
Of course.
At the last meeting, we presented the revised, the most recent draft of the law, which addressed some of the concerns, as you say, raised about who's specifying materials. It sort of clarified and simplified the various definitions and more firmly established the idea that we're not going to have perimeter fences on the front yards of properties. I will say as an aside that I was up in Montauk last weekend, and Waze took me through the back roads of the Hamptons, which are a hedge maze of 30-foot high green walls. If anybody wants to see what we're trying to avoid, take a trip up there, but not on a weekend. The premise is that the village was designed to be an open woodland expanse, not a series of lots carved up with fences or hedges or all the rest of it.
Oh, fence.
Okay. So that was presented and has all been in the various agendas. In preparation of this meeting, John and I had some discussions, and there were a couple of other minor points. Well, one was very minor. There's a section that says, oh, by the way, all fences still have to follow the rules promulgated for setback in the zoning, and we felt it would be a good idea to add and height to that, so there's no confusion. And the other was something that we discovered, which is, as the draft is currently written, no fences are permitted, no perimeter fences are permitted in a front yard. And a perimeter fence is defined as anything within 25 feet of the property line. If you have a small lot, your front yard may be less than 25 feet deep. And so there was some concern that that would prohibit putting up a deer fence in a front yard. It would actually prohibit putting up any fence in a front yard, and the draft specifically forbids the Board of Zoning Appeals from giving a variance on that point. So we added language that would suggest that if a front yard was less than 25 feet deep, the Board of Zoning Appeals could be given authority to provide a variance for a deer fence with a setback of half the depth of the yard, basically.
Why would you create a rule that prohibits the zoning board from ruling on a situation?
Good question. That language was in the original version of this law, and it was the strong feeling that I got from the trustees that we were absolutely trying to prevent putting fences in front yards. And so the board has the authority to make that sort of what's the word? Prohibition.
Determination.
Thank you. So I put in some language that to allow a fence in a front yard or allow for that variance. I leave it to the board whether that should be for a deer fence or any kind of fence, or if you simply want to take that prohibition out of the law and let the Board of Zoning Appeals do their thing.
I think you want to empower the boards to do what they're supposed to do, which is consider any situation. And if it's a substandard lot and you're throwing should give the zoning board the permission to make rulings in case-by-case basis. What you want is a case-by-case basis on top of a general rule.
And that is fine, as I have stated before. Part of my job is to put language in there so you guys can tell me why it's wrong. And at the end of the day, it is you all's decision as to what that is. I'm just here to facilitate that.
Anything else? Anything else on the board? Okay. We have a very, very busy September. We have a public hearing on the landscaper licensing law and an alleged violation. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. We will be introducing a discussion on Verizon Wireless at a cell tower, and I'm sure there are a lot of other things going to come up. So I would propose that a public hearing on the fence law, as amended, based upon our conversation, we all in agreement on the BZA's authority, be scheduled for the October meeting rather than the September meeting. So at this point, I would make a motion that the proposed Chapter 49 fence law, as amended, be published for all residents to see on the website, and that we schedule, as required, a public hearing on the proposed amended fence law for the October meeting, which, Elizabeth, is, anybody know or have a calendar?
The October meeting is 16th.
October 16th. And yes,
I would just ask that as you guys are reviewing it and whatever discussions you're having, if you have any requests to me to make changes to the language, let me have it in time to do it so that you can have it to publish.
sure, we'll do that. We'll take care of that. Do I have a second on scheduling a public hearing on the proposed amended fence law for October 16th? Second by Trustee Turner. All in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Scherer, aye. Is it unanimous?
Yep.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is the traffic study proposal for reduction in village speed limit 25 miles an hour. As I've discussed in the past, it is my belief that the speed limit is posted at 30 miles an hour, allows drivers to generally drive maybe 37 miles an hour. And I've always felt that these roads should have the lowest possible speed limit to avoid any accidents, injuries, or mishaps. And as I previously said, the state legislature in the summer of 2022 authorized municipalities to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour upon the completion of a traffic study. Traffic study is mandated. I'd love to just take a vote and have the trustees and myself decide whether 25 is a better speed limit than 30. but we have to have a traffic study. So as far back as last,
We have to have a traffic study if we're gonna entertain changing it,
right.
but if we're not gonna.
Yeah, well, let me give my spiel here, and then you're free to give your comments. The history of it is, back in December of last year, I solicited a traffic study from a firm called Kimley Horn, and they said $40,000, and I said no. In March of this year, I solicited a study from Creighton Manning Engineering Associates, and they quoted $19,850. And again, I said no. In July, on the 22nd, I got a quote from a Harry Baker and Associates of $36,000. All these proposals are just sky high. And if that's all I had, I would have given up on getting a traffic study, regardless of how the trustees personally feel about reducing the speed limit. However, I'm pleased to report, and I was happy to receive, a study from a firm called Collier's Engineering on July 26th of this year, where the proposal is for a traffic study to be done at a total sum of, just give me a minute. The estimated budget is $7,000. Now, some might say that's too much and we shouldn't bother. I tend to disagree. So I am offering this traffic study, and I hope everybody on the board has a chance to look at it, as the way to comply with Vehicle and Traffic Law 243, which requires a traffic study to be done by a licensed traffic engineer before the village can consider reducing the speed limit from whatever it might be down to the lowest number, which is now 25 miles per hour. So there's my proposal. I make the motion to approve this study. I ask for a second, and then we'll talk about it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by the deputy mayor. All right, it's open for discussion. Trustee Brooke.
Oh, if something's not broken, don't fix it, right? From my perspective, you don't create a speed limit that you need for select few roads for an overall set of roads in the village. So I think it's a waste of money, and I think the current speed limit is fine. But poll everybody.
Okay, Trustee Turner.
I've got little kids. I find that on some of the roads, people drive too fast.
Deputy Mayor.
I know that we often get complaints about people speeding, especially on Westlake Road, as you're coming down to where the pool is, and, there's a lot of kids walking in the summer, so.
Trustee Scherer.
I'm supportive of lowering the speed limit. I think it sets the tone and it sends a strong signal to all those people that do speed. When you have it set at 35, the temptation is to go 40. I think Jed did the little test of driving from his house to the front gate at that lower speed. It really makes no difference in our small community in terms of getting around. And we have people walking on these roads. We have people cycling on these roads. Many of them are our children. And yeah, I got to tell you, and I think you guys all know, I tend to run out there quite a bit. I've had cars come at me way too fast, and based on how they were driving, probably unaware that I was there. So I hear what you're saying, Paul. If it's not broken, don't fix it. All it takes is one accident for us to determine that it actually was broken. Let's slow everyone down. There's no need to rush.
Okay, I would just like everyone to know that I have a budget line. I've spoken to the police chief about where we're gonna get this 7,000. There is a miscellaneous budget line, 3120.28. There was initially $16,000 budgeted. There's been 2,000 spent, leaving 13,963, and I've told the chief that as speed is a policing issue, it's related to the police budget, and this $7,000 will be taken from that particular budget line. All in favor of hiring Collier to perform the study for the sum of $7,000, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Trustee Brooke?
Nay.
4-1.
But I would ask one other clarifying question. What was in the proposals that were bid at $25,000 and $30,000 that are not in the proposal at $7,000? Because somebody can say, you know, are you getting is that a comparable product? Right, as opposed to just a cheapie to get something done so you can do what you want.
You know, that's exactly the point. We just want a study done that agrees that 25.
That doesn't answer my question. The
Yeah.
question is, what is in the more expensive studies that is excluded in the less expensive study?
I've provided those in the past, and I'll be happy to provide you with all three of the other studies. I reviewed them all today, and I cannot recite what is in them, but I will absolutely send them to you tonight after this meeting. Okay, so that passed 4-1. Thank you. Okay, new business. Tuxedo Volunteer Ambulance Corps donation request was made. The issue of whether the village can contribute to this fund, it requires a discussion with the village attorney. And the village attorney is not present tonight, so we will discuss it with Jared Cashow in terms of by what method it may be possible for the village to contribute to the Volunteer Ambulance Corps. But for this moment, we'll table that discussion. The next item on the agenda is 42 Circuit Road tree removal permit request. And for that, I would turn to John because it involved the bar and a decision by the bar, and then it's come to us for a permit.
The village code allows for removal of 4 trees per year without any special permits or approvals. Anything more than 4 requires approval from the Board of Architectural Review and supposedly a permit issued by the Board of Trustees. Ann Hugh, who owns 42 Circuit Road, sent representatives to the August 5th, 2024 Board of Architectural Review meeting. The BAR reviewed the plan that Ann Hugh had submitted previously, and they approved the plan with some minor alterations. At this point, the plan calls for removal of 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. I believe 7 trees are to be removed, and a couple of trees are to be pruned. So she essentially needs approval from the village board to remove 7 trees, which is above the permitted 4 trees per annum.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to visit the property twice, once over the weekend, again today where I met Mr. Hugh. We looked at the trees. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to go.
I went this afternoon.
Yeah, and a lot of them are storm damaged or dying. And before we make a decision, I'd like to say that from the perspective of my perspective, I appreciate the fact that the Hugh family has followed the process required, because many of you may know we have issues about people, residents and owners that are cutting down large swaths of trees without any application, willy-nilly, simply because they feel it's their right as property owners. And as long as the code specifies 4 or less per year, we are going to enforce that. And we have an enforcement action presently pending in Justice Court. So I'd like to thank the Hughes for going through the trouble of appearing at the bar, making the presentation at the bar, and then coming to the Board of Trustees for the final permit before they're permitted to do the work. And on behalf of the village and all its residents, I thank you for following the law. Any other comments?
One thing, well, it was pretty clear, the ones that need to come down because the tornado or whatever that burst was went through and took off the top of some of those trees, and so it was pretty clear the ones that needed to be removed. There was one that you had spoken to him about, apparently, that is somewhat leaning, and you were questioning whether that one needed to come down. Do we want to put that one aside for now? And
I received an explanation from the homeowner as to why she wanted to remove that single evergreen. And what she said is as follows. We would absolutely love to keep it if it didn't pose physical danger to us. As you know, so many weak trees fell the last storm, and that was really a wake-up call to us. So we are now making the effort to eliminate potential hazardous trees. This small living tree is on top of the list for us to let go, as we think it would only be a matter of time that in a storm, it will crush the old wall beneath it, breaking into our kitchen. So I hope that you agree with our decision to let go of this tree. And after having this conversation with Ms. Hugh, I personally believe that she has a basis. And the fact is, she can designate 4 trees anyway to go, and she's designated 7. So she could say, that's one of the 4 that I could cut down anyway.
Sure.
And we reach the same conclusion because we
Right,
both agree,
right.
having been there, that the other trees have to go because they're all storm damaged.
right.
So I
and
didn't want to
it-
get into that discussion with her.
Yeah, no, I could see it really is leaning
Yeah.
against the wall. But the other comment I have is general about pruning. And I did, it's just the dead branches that they want to take out of the other trees. But we don't really have a good definition of pruning anywhere in the code. I don't know if it's something we should do so that people don't top trees or limb them up. I mean, pruning is just very unspecific.
Well, I think the first question is, if the Board of Architectural Review has approved it, why does it come to us? Do we have to second guess what the board has approved?
But we have to issue a permit.
The village code specifies that anything more than 4 needs approval both from the BAR and the trustees. That's all.
That's in the rule.
Yes.
My question is, with respect to this, given what's been said, we should give them the approval. Okay, and if you don't give them approval, they can take down 4 right now, take 4 down or 3 in January. So, this is a village that has a reputation for creating all kinds of problems and doing buildings and doing all this stuff. You want to be resident friendly. In this case, I think I would say we should approve the reduction of 7 trees. It sounds like some of them are already damaged, and you're allowed to take down damaged tree without going before the board. That's my move.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, be it resolved that, the, Board of Trustees approve a permit, to the owner of 42 Circuit Road to remove the trees designated in the BAR decision of, August 5th, 2024. Do I have a second?
One sec.
Second by the deputy mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Trustee Scherer?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. All right, the next item on the agenda is the 5th Annual Tunnel to Towers Run, Walk, Bike Ride on September 7th of 2024. As the Board of Trustees, we have to give approval for this event to take place on our public road. It's taken place in the past. I think it's, while there is no fundraising for this particular event, the sponsor believes it's an important thing to remember what happened so many years ago, and I would agree. And this event allows residents to partake in an athletic activity. So be it resolved to grant permission for the 5th Annual Tunnel to Towers Run, Walk, Bike, Ride event on September 7th of 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any, aye?
And Mayor,
Josh?
Yes,
Can I just-
aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Can I
Well,
just, I just wanted to make one quick point, if you don't mind, about the fundraising. They do accept donations, and there's a link that's posted on the website,
The
so you can make donations.
the donations are not accepted by the sponsor of this race. The donations are made.
That's correct. Goes
Directly
directly to
to the
organizations.
Tunnel and Towers Foundation. So we want to make the point that the resident who sponsors this is not going to be collecting checks. You just, if you want to donate, you donate directly online or by some other method to the Tunnel and Towers Foundation. Okay. Next item, we have 2 bar vacancies and we're here tonight to talk about one. It's for a 5-year term that will end in July of 2029. That position was held by Molly Gonzalez until the term expired in July of this particular year. As part of the process of selecting a new member of the bar, we solicited resumes from various candidates. We had the opportunity, all or some of us had the opportunity to interview the candidates. And with respect to how we proceed from this particular point, I asked for an opinion from the village attorney, and he provided the following. The power of the mayor and the board of trustees is set forth in Village Law 4-400 and 4-12. As provided in 4-400, subparagraph 1C1, the mayor has the authority to appoint all non-elected officers subject to approval by the Board of Trustees. Village Law 4-412 provides no authority for any trustee to make an appointment of a person to a non-elected position. So while we all interviewed and we had conversations about the individuals and their qualifications, and everybody who applied was very qualified, I have made the determination as the chief executive of the village and as the mayor, pursuant to my powers of Village Law 4-400, to nominate and appoint Julie Reed. And let me tell you a little bit about Julie Reed. Julie Reed has been a resident in the village for 4 years. She is uniquely experienced due to her many years of representing clients in their applications to numerous architectural review boards in historic preservation areas. She is extremely sensitive to the natural and architectural beauty of Tuxedo Park and most keen to preserve it. At the same time, she is deeply involved in the selection and employment of new materials, which would help us to make the most appropriate choices and to balance the needs of conservation with environmental considerations and the desire for efficiency. She was interviewed by the chair of the bar, Stephanie Rinza, together with me and the deputy mayor, and the chair, who is not here today, heartily endorses her as a selection to the bar. So I would make the motion that we appoint we appoint Julie Reed to the bar to take on the vacancy created by the end of the term of Molly Gonzalez. It is a 5-year term expiring in July of 2029, and I would ask for a second.
I'll second.
Second by the deputy mayor. Any discussion by the board? Trustee Scherer.
You're on mute, Josh.
Thanks, Jed. I don't think you mentioned it in your remarks, but Jed and I also interviewed her a couple of days ago.
I didn't say who interviewed her. I thought everybody did, but go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. No, it's fine. No, she was great. I'm very supportive. She was fantastic. I think clearly exceptionally well qualified. I think will be very user friendly. And yeah, I very happy with our new bar chair, and I thought Julie was exceptional. So very supportive.
Thank you, Trustee Scherer. Comments? Any other comments?
I echo everything Josh just said.
Okay. All right.
Oh, Mayor?
Yeah.
Sorry, Tinka has her hand raised.
That's nice, but there's no public comment on this particular agenda item. So Tinka can make her public comment at the end of the meeting. Thank you. All in favor of appointing Julie, to the bar, please say aye.
Aye.
Or
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you very much. We wish you well, Ms. Reed. We know you'll do a great job. Okay. Okay, now, we've discussed this before. The next item on the agenda is a fireworks display by a private party, which will be held at the Tuxedo Club on September 14th of 2024. We've had some division in the board about fireworks. We authorized the club to have its own fireworks display in July. We also authorized the fireworks display on the Labor Day weekend. As I mentioned I guess last month, I was pleased to be able to get the club to agree to cover 50% of the cost of the additional police protection that's required for their two events, starting with the September event and continuing into the perpetuity, let's say. So I was pleased by the fact that we're able to get a contribution to that particular event. We had a private party fireworks earlier this year. As I mentioned in an earlier meeting, I screwed up and I should have notified the community, and people were upset because they didn't expect it. The dogs got scared and it was my fault. I think it was sometime in March. So now we have another proposal for a fireworks display on September 14th. And I'd open the floor for a discussion. How do we feel about essentially allowing these displays to take place anytime someone gets married or has a bar mitzvah, or some sort of affair at the club and wants to celebrate it through fireworks? And Professor Hayes, would you like to speak on this?
I think it's a bad precedent set. I've looked into it and it's quite inconclusive at this point. There is a certain amount of pollution that is involved with these fireworks lanes down into the lake. And there have been some studies done, but they're not conclusive in terms of the damage that is done by that. But there is, I never thought that, just the 4th of July was probably not a big deal. But if you begin to, anybody who wants to have a private party and have a fireworks display, you begin to get into very many, already we're having many fireworks displays. Plus it's a disturbance to the community, and it bothers the animals, bothers the wild animals, bothers domestic animals, and it gets a disturbance. And although maybe people want to go out and watch them after a while, fireworks get boring. So I'm negative on granting more and more of these for private parties.
Thank you, Professor. Members of the board have any comments on this?
No, I guess the question is how many fireworks? There's 2 a year now, right? And the club's asking for one more.
Well, the club's not asking, the private party is.
Private party?
Yeah, this is not a club event. This is a private party where I can give you the details. A member of the club, who is also a resident of the park, is hosting a wedding for their daughter at the Tuxedo Club on Saturday, September 14th at 2024. They will be having a 5-minute firework display at around 9 p.m. on the 14th. They've worked with the company below, which has been recommended by the club, and they did supply a certificate of liability insurance.
I appreciate Mr. Hayes' comments. I guess I just 5-minute fireworks show for someone's wedding. That doesn't concern me.
Okay. Trustee Brooke, any?
I'm in the same way, 5 minutes at 9 o'clock at night. I don't like the fact that the club will only cover half of the costs of our service. The club is going to host fireworks and we have to provide police or whatever we need to provide for that. That should be the responsibility of the club, and they can add that cost to whatever the cost is to the client for what they do. It should not be our expense. It should be the club's expense.
For a private party.
Well, you're talking about a private party.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just talking
okay.
about a private party.
Right, okay. I did not address private parties with Randy St. John. I was talking about the club event. So
Right.
I understand. I'm
I
happy
understand.
I'm happy to take that up with him. Deputy Mayor.
Well, I think that even private parties should have ambulance and fire people there, which is, I think, a burden on these volunteer organizations. I think it's a bad precedent even if it is only 5 minutes. I just don't like the precedent at all. I think, they used to have just one, now they're having two. There was a private party last winter, and I just could see it escalating, and I'm against the disturbance factor and the reliance that is needed to be put on the fire and ambulance corps.
Thank you. Trustee Sheriff.
I honestly don't feel strongly one way or the other. I hear the arguments on both sides.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll put it to a vote. I'll make the motion that we approve a fireworks display as requested by the Tuxedo Club for a private party on September 14th of 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Brooke. All in favor, roll call. Trustee Turner?
Aye.
Trustee Brooke?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor?
Nay.
Trustee Scherer?
I'm going to abstain.
And I also vote nay. So the motion does not carry 2-2.
You abstain.
You got, yeah.
It's better to make decisions, right? You know,
I was hoping that I wouldn't matter.
good luck.
You
Right.
got it, Jeff.
Okay,
John,
I will
So
advise.
Actually, are you gonna stay with your abstain vote?
Yeah, I guess we should, as a practical matter, they do it in Congress, so, at the end of the roll call, a member of the House gets to change their vote for various political reasons. So what would you like to do, sir?
This is why you make the big bucks.
You've got a right to abstain.
Yeah, he does, absolutely, but then the motion is defeated if he abstains.
Is it, right, a no vote is actually a vote. Is it possible to approve this without, because I clearly, I'm sympathetic to the precedent argument, and I don't want to set a precedent, because, Professor Hayes makes good points. It's one thing to have a 5-minute firework display, but if you're doing that 50 times a year or 20 times a year or 15 times a year, then it adds up. We already have enough issues with our lake. So I don't like the precedent issue, but I am sympathetic to the request. And I'm just wondering if we can separate the two issues. We have a request on the table. And again, maybe you're just going to tell me I just need to make a vote.
Any request comes before us.
Right.
If you request, I guarantee.
Right.
Knows.
But here's the issue, Paul, right? We approved this, and then the next one to come in, it's a wedding and they want it for 4 minutes or they want it for 6 minutes. And we approved this one. How do we not approve that one?
By saying no, if we don't approve it, right? I mean.
Yeah, I get that. That's not a very fair way to conduct business, right?
I also have a question. Are they asking the fire department and the ambulance corps to be there?
I cannot answer that question because it is not contained in the letter requesting permission.
Don't you think they should be? I mean, what if firework misfires and goes into an neighboring property?
Yeah, I'm prepared to vote, honestly.
Okay, we'll vote, we'll allow you to vote again. What's your vote, sir?
It's a no.
Okay. The motion fails 2-3. All right. I'll advise the Tuxedo Club tomorrow. Okay, we're moving right along. The next item is AJ Reyes is our lake ecologist. We have had questions. I think if you look at the lake, you will see that it has a green hue. And we have to address that. And I am working, or at least trying to get one of two companies, either Solitude Lakes Management or another company that doesn't come to mind immediately, to make a recommendation as to how to treat the lake if this green hue is in fact dangerous, affects the drinking water. I'm told it doesn't because our intake pipes are 25 feet below the surface. But AJ, as our lake ecologist, actually doesn't have a consulting agreement with the village. He's involved in specific projects, one of which is the aeration project that he's working with Trustee Scherer. But when we pose these questions to him, I send him photos of the lake and I say, what's going on with the lake? Why is it this color? He told me that it looks like an algae bloom, but you know, I'm not sure, but I want you to know something, that these questions that you put to me don't relate to the contract I have for the aeration system. And if you'd like me to be a consultant, I have a very reasonable fee, and I'm looking for a contract of 10 hours at $135 an hour, which to me appears to be a reasonable amount to use his expertise when these issues come up that we need to address. So I put on the agenda, and I'm making a proposal that we hire AJ Reyes for 10 hours with a consulting agreement that he's allowed to bill us $135 per hour for expert advice that we need with respect to the quality of the lakes. And I would ask someone to second it. Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Second, we'll give it to Trustee Scherer remotely.
Yeah.
And now,
Listen,
go ahead.
I was unaware that you know, our frequent questions to him were effectively not covered by the contract, and that we were using his services for free. If I'd known that, I would have rectified the issue sooner. So I'm actually happy he raised it. I will say though, so I'm very supportive of this contract. I think Jim will agree with me, and it would be interesting to get Jim's perspective. But if we do sign him up to this consulting contract where he's available, he needs to be way more responsive. But maybe I understand now why he wasn't as responsive in the past. But I like AJ a lot. I think he knows our lakes. He's easy to work with. He adds a lot of value, and we do need him to be responsive. So I'm supportive.
Yeah, I did not know that we were not compensating him for his time. So this makes sense to me.
Okay. Anybody else?
I was looking with Elizabeth at the budget. There is a budget line for lakes management, so I think we have enough in that budget line for this.
Anyone else? Okay. Yes, Professor.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. In the past, AJ has answered such questions as you've asked. And it hasn't been a problem. When we originally hired him, he said he would be happy to answer questions like that. If we wanted him to come down here and give a presentation or do something like that, then we'd have to pay for his time. So I'm not quite sure why he's made this change. He's with a different company now than he was before, which may make a difference. It's a bigger company and maybe it's a little more formal, then that may be true. I think it's a good expenditure. I mean, I think it's a fair expenditure. I've been somewhat disappointed with him, for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's taking far too long to provide the reports for the past summer's work. I mean, you didn't get the report for last summer's work until after you've done the budget. This should be to you by, at the end of the year, the end of January at the latest.
Yeah.
So you have those results to evaluate when you're considering what work you need to do in the budget. And he knows that. And I'm sure he's under pressure from all the people he's working for. But I think if we kind of let him do that, he will definitely do it. And it's gotten worse because he used to get the report maybe in March or April. But this year it was, I think it was June. I mean, it was very late.
Well,
And I think that he needs to, I think that we need some discussion with him about being responsive, as Josh has indicated, but also getting the report in much earlier than he has in the past.
well, I've got a great idea to at least address your issue, which is, we have a Zoom call with him to talk to him about this agreement that we're gonna make with him for 10 hours at $135 an hour. And we essentially tell him what we expect from him in terms of timeliness, responsiveness, etc. Would you have any problem joining that Zoom call either here at Village Hall or at your home remotely? Do you have it? Would you be able to join us at some point if it was convenient, Trustee Scherer?
Yeah, it just depends on the time. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the motion's on the table to approve this consulting agreement with the proviso that we're going to have a sit down to talk about his work and his workload. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. John?
Aye.
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 5-0. Okay, thank you. All right. The last item on the agenda is discussion of the Village Boat Club licensing agreement. We have a large turnout from the executive committee or the board of directors of the boat club, and I welcome you to the Board of Trustees meeting. Let me explain why I put this item on the agenda.
Mayor, it's okay if you would think they'll just come forward.
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
I'm a little under the weather, so I may need my beer.
Yeah, sure.
Got some balance issues today.
So as I was saying, in reviewing the files in the office here at Village Hall, and please, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but the latest licensing agreement between the village and the Village Boat Club that I was able to find was executed in 2001.
So let me.
Go ahead.
interject.
Yeah, please interject.
Okay, so I'll just go through this quickly. So the original licensing agreement dated 18th day of July 2001 was approved unanimously by the board. There was then another licensing agreement in 2002, March, doesn't say what day of 2002. That was then approved 5-0. That is on page 2 of the village's notes from that Board of Trustees meeting. There was another attempt to update the licensing agreement with Houston Stebbins in 2008. It was drafted on 5/25. There were multiple revisions that went on for several months. And then apparently based on the advice of the village attorney, that conversation came to an end. Again, in 2010, there was a draft dated May 10th, updated May 22nd. There was an extension of the licensing agreement, and that was village does hereby grant for the past 3 years and for the next successive 3 years to the club a limited right to license and use in common with the village and its assignees, Tuxedo Lake, only for the boating and fishing purposes of, in the village water plant area, only for launching and storing boats April 1, 2010 through October 31st, 2012. And that is dated May 2010. There was a series of emails between myself and Mayor Stebbins. He apologized for the delay. That is an email dated May 22nd to 2:04. There was some discussion about various issues, electrical use, the village investing back into the boat club, $1,000 in licensing fees. And the boat club was then to request certain improvements that the BOT would exclusively consider. There was another draft licensing agreement, 2014. That had multiple changes, adjustments back and forth. That never came to fruition. And then there was another licensing agreement drafted in 2015, where whoever the mayor at the time was had suggested that the docks, I'm sorry, this is our comment. It said the BBC retains the ownership rights to all BBC equipment, including boats, racks, docks, hardware, and electrical equipment installed in said dock. So there have been numerous conversations, numerous attempts, and a multitude of drafts, to no fault of ours. I mean, I've got my emails going back for 20 some odd years.
You know, I appreciate that, Greg, and I'm not looking to put blame on whether it's the village government, the mayor at the time, or you. The reason I put this on the agenda is simply because we have to have a current licensing agreement.
Understood.
And what I would like to do, with your consent, is to meet with you together with one other member of the board to use the last licensing agreement as a template, and essentially to come up with an agreement that we can both sign, that will be effective and subject to renewal on an annual basis. Somebody dropped the ball 10 years ago. I don't care who it was. It's of no interest to me, but you operate the Village Boat Club on village property. There are insurance issues that we have to talk about, whether we're an additional insured on your policy. From my perspective, I mean, we all understand that boating involves what could be described as, hazardous activity. There's dangers there. And I just want to ensure that the village is properly covered with respect to any, God forbid, issue or injury to anybody who's either a member of the club or a guest of the club. So what we need is a licensing agreement, something that's good for another year. We can pick the term, we can make whatever decisions we have to make in negotiation. And the only reason I put it on is to get your consent to get together, to have this discussion, and to come up with a licensing agreement that's acceptable to both sides, which we can sign, which will be effective and will be enforceable.
I just have two quick questions. Is there liability insurance purchase? Okay, awesome.
So I can't speak directly to the insurance. OAG typically takes care of the insurance, but there is a officer's policy in place. There's a liability policy in place. There's a policy for each of the boats that the Village Boat Club owns. And what's the other policy? Three policies.
Yeah. And then,
So
that's good. And then I'm assuming the original contract require what those insurance are. Can't we just put a stipulation that the contract renews every year unless the village doesn't renew it?
Well, there is an issue Jared continually raises with me as the village attorney, that we can't bind future boards. So if you're saying subject to approval by a future board, I think that would be possible.
Just that way, you
Yeah.
don't have to rewrite the contract every year.
But we have to start somewhere, okay? And what I believe we have to start with is a licensing agreement that works for the boat club, works for the village, and is current. And
And it's in the best interest of the village, because everybody who's in the boat club is a member of
Member
the
of the
village.
village,
So
yeah.
it's a village, we should just have something done that protects everybody. And, I'm supportive of just getting it done.
we're happy to do it. We're
Okay.
we're
That's
ready to
great.
do it. We only have a couple of asks that we really would like to see that that the trustees either visit the boat club or completely, I know you're there regularly.
Every day with the dog, yeah.
So, we'd also like yourself and whoever is going to be appointed to this committee to review, the village code 65 through, 65-1 through 65-10. That code, as Paul could probably tell you, he and I served on the committee that actually rewrote that to make sure that the taxpayer of the village of Tuxedo Park was included in the code. Also, there's volumes of historic documents, which some of them I looked in the file.
Mostly related to expansion of the dock, and I don't see, what,
Well, the boat club argument goes back 50 years.
but you don't wanna, that's ancient.
I'm not interested in revisiting.
Yeah, okay,
I
good.
just want to make sure that if we're going to have a discussion about this, that we're all aware of the history
Yeah.
and what brought this about, why the boat club
Everyone's
exists.
very supportive of it.
Yeah, I mean, that I went through the same documents you foiled and received, and it is ancient history. I don't need to revisit the disputes of 2005, 2006. All I want to ensure is that we have an agreement, we have a licensing agreement that protects the village, and works for the boat club. And for that, we need to sit down in a meeting that's convenient for everybody. And while we're at it, is there any member of the board who wants to join me on this?
Paul, you wrote the law. I think I just got kicked through.
Sorry, I mentioned it, sorry.
My attitude is Occam's razor. Let's keep it simple. I'm happy to sit and meet with you and just get it done.
Okay.
All right, I'll ask Augie to put the insurance policies together.
And get copies of all the insurance policies.
Yeah, and see if we are an additional
Yeah.
named insured. That's sort of important.
That's an important.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have an insurance expert right here. Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
one thing is we should do is just every year, the village boat club should provide insurance certificates to John, just as a matter of course.
We had historically provided.
We probably did already.
insurances And our insurance policies at the beginning, and that went on for several years.
So just let me know when you want to meet. We'll get it done.
Very good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Anything else?
Nope,
Okay,
I just
thank you.
brought these guys just in case I'm a little under the weather, so in case I needed any factual or documentary backup.
Okay, well, I'm glad we reached an agreement on just getting an agreement. That's the important thing, because, the fishing club has an annual agreement, the Weewa Beach Club, until it was discontinued, had an annual agreement for 80 years, and we need to have one in the file for you guys as well. And we appreciate all the hard work you do on maintaining that. I see it myself, when I walk the dog down there every morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
So you're not insulted if we go, right?
No, no.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. All right, next, we have audit of claims. We're getting to the end, at least for the public session.
We only need three.
What's that?
We only need three.
Yeah, audit of claims. Any budget transfers, this month, Elizabeth?
Nope.
No budget transfers. Okay. Next item is, closing comments. So I'd open the floor to the public. Ms. Thies, I know I probably pronounced it wrong, but at least I remembered how to spell it.
Well, I'm very impressed about this.
Okay.
It's Tice.
Shy, okay,
Yes, it's very German.
right.
I'm so glad to hear you speak extensively on safety of village-owned property, because there happens to be an easement in which I access my home. I am a year-round resident. I believe this will be the first time that this property has been occupied in the winter. My current understanding is that I have no authority to make any repairs to that pathway or to make it safer for winter passage, and winter is coming. So I'm here to request some sort of improvement to the pathway that would make it safe, would prevent the board from being sued, me from being sued. When a delivery person breaks their leg on the path because it's iced up. If you haven't been to the path, there's exposed roots, there's unevenness. The rains have really done a number on the path this summer.
I would like to propose one possible solution would be to have paved steps up to just the property line. This would leave the historic part of the steps intact above the home. And I would offer that if the city was willing to do something kind of what they do with Aspen, where it's the heated concrete, that would prevent maintenance that the city would be responsible for, and I would pay for the electricity. So that is my proposal to the board. I hope that we can come up with that, and in particular, a railing or something, especially with the winter. So I feel like even short term, if we could potentially have a railing there, that it would be an enormous improvement of safety for that publicly owned land. And also, I'd like to point out that a neighbor of mine, an elderly gentleman, left a note in my mailbox saying that he'd like to visit me, but he can't. There isn't a railing, and so it's public property, but it's not accessible to everybody. It is a year-round home, and that issue is going to get worse very soon. So, those are
Thank
my
you.
concerns.
Trustee Brooke, you're familiar with the property.
I am familiar with the property. I think we should take care of our responsibility. And I guess it'd be appreciated if you could just write a note with what you're proposing for us to consider, revise, whatever it is.
Okay.
My intuitive sense is eating a path is probably outside the scope of what we'll do, but making that a safer path, against all the heavy rains
Yes.
is clearly a village responsibility.
Yes, and also if the pathway isn't heated, it would be the village's responsibility to clear it, whether they pave it or not. It is, I have been told repeatedly that I cannot touch the pathway, so.
So yeah, I think maybe we'll sit down with Jeff Voss and try to
Okay.
figure out what we should do.
Okay, that would be
The
great.
one variable in there is there is a sewer pipe under the path, which is
Yes.
why there are manhole covers.
Yes.
So.
How long is the path?
I haven't measured it, but my estimate would be around 150 feet, maybe.
1,200 steps.
Yeah, but, so the pathway goes from, the base up to the house, and then it continues onward. The upper part of the path is much more treacherous, like the steeper, kind of stone steps. The lower part right now is largely an incline. So there are concerns, obviously, with the sewer pipes, but there are also concerns about visitors breaking their legs.
Yeah, I had suggested, I know this is probably a project that's too big for anyone. These original steps from the top down, I think there's 25. If they were to be moved and placed at the bottom, and the top portion of the stairwell was essentially closed off or planted or something, we just essentially turned it into a garden. Would that be something that would be acceptable? Because those are the original stones that would then provide a series of
Right.
steps up to your house.
Well, my concern is that those stones are very steep, like some of those stones are like 2 feet. Based on.
You mean in terms of the
Of
height?
like how much of a step down it would be. Also, they're enormous slabs of stone.
Yeah, they are. I mean,
So,
they're probably very heavy.
if the city wants to pay for that, that's one thing, but, because the lower part, the neighbors already have partially paved areas of the path. There is remnants of what used to be paved on that path that you can see when you go up and down it. So paving would not be a new thing historically to have happened to that pathway. But doing it in a way that makes it accessible to all residents, it is a house in the community, it would be.
We'll let Trustee Brooke work on that, because he
Okay.
knows that property very well.
And I could
Yeah,
talk
Much
about it
appreciated.
independently, just
Okay.
what you want done, and
Okay,
I'll, just anytime.
all right, that sounds lovely,
Okay.
thank you.
okay, thank you, Ms. Tice.
Well done.
All right, any other public comment from the, any other public comment from the room? Okay, on Zoom, I see Ms. Shaw has her hand up. Ms. Shaw.
I think you're on mute, I think.
Yes, my comment is on the bar person that you unanimously voted for. For the public record, I would like village residents to know, I could be wrong, but I think I'm right, that she is a renter. She is not a property owner, And I personally, as a property owner, would be very offended to have a renter dictate what I have to do with my house.
Okay.
Can you confirm that she is a renter, not a property owner in the village?
Ms. Shaw, I will confirm that she has rented at the Loomis Labs for 4 years.
Well, I rest my case. I would be very offended coming in front of the bar, having a renter tell me what I have to do when I pay the taxes and she doesn't. So for the record, I want everybody to know that she
pay
is a
rent.
renter, not a, no, she is,
I
I,
appreciate.
I'm just saying, I'm not arguing. I want it to be part of the record so everybody knows that she's a renter, not a property owner, and she does not pay taxes. I rest my case.
Thank you for your comment. I don't view renters as second-class citizens, especially someone with the type of professional background that she has that will bring to the table. But everyone is, including you, is entitled to their own opinion. So thank you for expressing it.
And
Anybody else wish to speak?
I think I'm the only one with my hand up. And I just would like that to be crystal clear that she is a renter, not a property owner. She doesn't pay taxes. We do. And I would not like a renter to tell me what I have to do with my property.
Thanks for repeating yourself. Okay. Next victim.
My pleasure.
Next victim, Jay Reichgott.
Hi, Jay Reichgott. I live at 121 Laurel Road and I own my property. And I have been a renter. Not in this village, but in other places. First, let us be perfectly clear. Renters pay taxes. It comes in as part of your rent. Second of all, the suggestion that somehow somebody who rents their property instead of owns their property is somehow a lesser citizen is not only illegal, it's frankly offensive. There are lots of reasons why people rent their property and don't purchase it. Some of them are very good. In fact, if you look at the demographic trends in the nation, more people are renting than are purchasing. It is not significant of anything about your character, your ability, or your value as a citizen. To suggest otherwise, quite frankly, is elitist nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reichgott. Now, we're not going to go back and forth, Tinka. I'm sorry. Any other public comment from anybody else? Great. Okay. Now we're going to move on to trustee comments. Would any of the trustees or the deputy mayor like to say something with respect to anything they believe is appropriate? Deputy mayor?
No.
Trustee Brooks? No. Trustee Turner? Trustee Scherer?
Nope.
Okay. We're now going to move into executive session. So let me just make the motion. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees leave the public meeting at 9:25 and enter executive session to discuss prospective litigation, land, this is confidential, but possible land donation, water and sewer charges, and that's it. That'll be the subject matter.
Just as a point of information, you said it. The board's supposed to leave the meeting. If we want to hang out, we're allowed to. I don't.
You can go sit into my office and wait.
I own everything.
Oh, there'll be a conference room that way.
Yes.
Yeah, there will be.
Gotta get that going.
There will be a conference room. Okay. All right. Okay, why don't we start with the positive stuff? We're gonna turn, yeah. Adjourn. I make a motion that we adjourn for the evening. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by the deputy mayor, all in favor?
So we're not
Aye.
having, we're not, we're not, I'm sorry, we're not having a motion on that water sewer thing? I thought you just said we were. I was just a little
No,
confused.
no,
Okay.
trustee Brooke pointed out if they accept the offer, we'll make a resolution agreeing to the
Oh,
session.
okay. And the last, the adjournment was Michelle seconded?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, good night.
Night.